All right, so you both are here to talk to us about how professionals in midlife need to change the way they plan their careers in the current context. Could you tell us a little bit more about that context and how it's impacting midlife professionals? Lynda, would you like to start?
Sure. So I always love to start with the bigger picture because once we know what the bigger picture is, it's easier to get into the detail. And for me, some of the mega trends that for me are critical when we're thinking about our later career is in Davos in 2020, just before the COVID pandemic, longevity was on the agenda, the global agenda for the very first time, because it's starting to impact many things in life. And so looking to that we're going to live on average 10 years longer than our parents' generation and 20 years longer than our grandparents' generation. So we are pioneering change. And with that, it means there's a gift season and we need to think differently about this extra length of time that we're having. Sadly, pension funds and those kinds of things have not caught up. So often retrenchment or an age that you have to retire is still there. So we have to think differently about that. The second one is technology. Without a doubt, technology has changed the world. And I think COVID has accelerated how technology impacts us. We probably would be having this conversation if COVID hadn't happened, but certainly many corporates would not be engaging as much in virtual work, remote work, changing the way we need to think. So that for me is another big mega trend. And so for me, that's the context from which I would like to start.
I love that. Thank you, Lynda. Helen, well, how about you? What do you see the context as? What do you see to be the impact on midlife professionals?
Well, I absolutely agree with Lynda that we are living longer, we're working longer, thank goodness, and we're enjoying it more. So, but the companies have not caught up, as she mentioned, as far as pensions and benefits and so on. So I think changes are slowly creeping in, but it's an educational process for companies to understand the value of cross-generational or keeping some of the senior employees. There are studies done that have shown that it's 34% more productive and 28% more innovative with a cross-generational team. And again, as Lynda mentioned, redesigning some of these workplaces for the virtual and the remote, and gig work also has become the term. I think people did it before, but now it's called gig. But so I think individuals need to educate themselves and stay aware of these changes and what the positives and the values are, so that they can understand that and discuss it and address it and resolve it with anyone that they're interviewing with or reaching out to. I think some of the other things they need to do is social branding and just marketing themselves differently. Again, Lynda mentioned technology. Yes, they absolutely, no matter what your age is, you have to be on top of it. You have to be comfortable with it. You have to have a high level of comfort. It's just like confidence when you're interviewing. You need confidence about your technical skills. So I think those are all very important for the next season, the next chapter, for keeping yourself relevant and active.
Okay. Now, you started to talk about kind of designing that next season or the next chapter of your life. What do you think that midlife professionals need to think of as they're going to design this next chapter? Helen, do you want to start us?
Well, I think they need to drill down on identifying what they want that next chapter to be. So I think they need to talk to themselves to identify what are they passionate about, what do they like, for example, in what they're doing. Do they like the industry? Do they like the organization? Do they want a career pivot? Do they want a complete change? Do they want to go into nonprofit from business? They need to identify what's going to drive them and what they're going to be passionate about and love at the end of the day, because that's what's going to keep them going. So I think it's very important, the self-examination. And then once I think they identify what number one, what the changes they want to make are, and the value that they bring based on their previous experience. And then they need to set themselves goals, long-term, midterm, short-term goals. So they know what they're doing. Are they planning on making their change a year from now? Well, then what are they going to do every month to contribute? What are they going to do every day to contribute, whether it's just networking during the course of a day or doing some activity, but they need to make that commitment and lay out their plan.
I like that. Okay. Lynda, how about you? What do you think else needs to be thought of as we're designing that next chapter?
Yes, I love what Helen has spoken about. I think the structure and thinking is really important. The thing I love to help people to think about is that we arrive in this part of our lives unique. They're quite different from when we're in our 20s and 30s or starting out in our career. We've had 20 or 30 years of experience. We've been through some valleys and mountaintops, so we've built a little bit more character along the way. And some of those skills come from parts of our journey that may not have been in the workplace. We may have been in one career or had taken a break. So we arrive unique, either with enough money, good health, not enough money, health problems, family challenges. So, you know, each person is individual as they're thinking about this process. And it's a longish process. So don't think you're going to kind of wave a magic wand and it's going to happen. I love to use a concept called ikigai, which
I was just talking about this earlier this week. I love this.
So it's a Japanese concept about finding purpose. And the 4 questions around ikigai are: what do I love? What am I great at? What can I get paid for? And what does the world need? And when we're starting to design and think about it, I love to get my people on my courses to do a vision board with those 4 circles overlapping in the middle, and then cutting out pictures, words, and putting them close to the words that matter the most, and build a design for yourself, because it may be more than one thing. Because in this season, it may not be a full-time job. It may be some volunteering. It may be a consulting a process or 2, and some time to yourself. So again, I love the ikigai practice because it just helps us to move forward individually in our own unique way.
Yeah, when I first came across it, I mean, it's been several months now, but when I first heard of it, I think it's through an event much like this. I found it fascinating because, like, at no point and at any point in my career or job searching or anything had anyone ever said that. You know, it's usually like, well, what do you like to do? Well, what are you good at? And you know, that can feel very, you know, like it feels too many choices, right? And so I love this idea of using that kind of ikigai framework to, if only just narrow a little bit about the areas that you're looking to explore. I think that is so wonderful and a really good way to like kind of frame those questions. Okay, so we want to talk about a little bit about, you know, the earning potential. There's a lot of questions about how older professionals can earn for longer than they had originally planned, right? There's, you know, like you said earlier, we're going to be living 10, 15, 20 years longer than previous generations. So obviously you got to be able to afford that. And like you said, you know, pensions, I mean, I don't know about anybody else in the audience, but I've bid adieu to all of the Social Security money I've paid into. I'm never seeing that. That's fine. It's going to support my dad, and that, you know, I'll just be SOL. But like, it's, you know, it's one of those things that we do have to start planning for, right? Because we're going to be living longer. So how do you think older professionals can plan ahead for these things if we're talking about ways to earn longer? Lynda, do you want to talk about it first?
Yeah, so again, I'll go back to some of the things that I talk about in my modules of my course. And I start with identity. I think we need to be very clear about who we are and what the roles are that we've played or will continue to play, as you say, sandwiched sometimes between children and parents, or in an empty nest, or whatever it might be for you. Some of the roles will drop off. Some of them we can recreate new roles because we'll have more time on your side. For me, that identity was quite hard at 50 because I was divorced, but I'd been focusing on my children, so I hadn't given too much time to myself. But then both my children got married 3 months apart and both left South Africa. and I went into a deep dark hole. So I think your identity and who you are in this next season is a critical part. Two questions that around your identity that I always ask is, one is, what do you need to look back around in your life to move forward? Because often we're carrying quite heavy grieving processes with us, and that will stop you from moving forward. And the second one is to look up and look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself the question about, what am I avoiding? For me, it was the money question, because I kept saying, don't worry, I'm just going to keep working till I die because I don't have enough. But actually, when my financial advisor said to me, you need to know what that looks like, and you need to know how good or how bad it is so you can plan. As Helen said, put the goals in place. And I have the mantra that working longer is the best plan I have for the rest of my life. And so identity, number one. Secondly, the ikigai purpose, as I said, discover what that will be for you. Thirdly, work on your action plan so that you can build the steps and start experimenting, remain curious and open-minded. Those are things that are really important in this fast-changing world. Helen also mentioned, start to build a personal brand. It doesn't matter whether you're looking for a full-time job or not. The length of the time we work is treated like a contract by contract, adding value every day, and build your personal brand. Who are you? Build your LinkedIn profile, because I think that, and build networks that can make a massive difference, diverse networks across the world. Thank you, Helen, for this. This would not have happened without a great LinkedIn profile. And me working quite a lot over the last 15 years on a personal brand. And then lastly, the last question is legacy. What is it that you want to leave behind? What is it that you want to work on in this next season that will richly bring legacy for your family, for your community, and into the future? Enough from me.
No, I love this. I'm loving everything. I think that is a really good point. Focus on your identity, because it's very easy to lose that. Whether you've been caregiving for, a year or 20 years, it is very, very easy to lose yourself in the needs of other people, however valid those needs may be. And so, it is really, really important to kind of bring that back to center and figure out what you actually want to do. I think it was one of the, I think it's two sessions ago, 2 or 3. One of the speakers was like, say what you want. Figure it out. It's okay to say what you want. It doesn't matter if you can make it happen. It doesn't matter if it's even possible. Say it and then go from there. So I think that's absolutely wonderful to try and help people try and figure out where they want to go. Helen, how do you feel about this?
Oh, I think that's critical about where they want to go, because as Lynda mentioned, I think people sometimes come into this next chapter with a heaviness, with a, what am I going to do? And how much time do I have to do it? And you can't do that. You have to, I think, number one, yes, identify what are you passionate about? What are you going to love? And what's going to motivate you to keep going? And you have to look, when you look in that mirror, look at the value you bring, because we always underestimate our value. We always, as you said, if you've been caregiving, if you've been volunteering, whatever you've been doing, it all has value. And you need to evaluate what those values are, how they're going to transfer into skills for you to do that next chapter. And make yourself aware of them and build your confidence with them. And the other thing, and I know from me in the past, Megan, obsessed about networking. So I agree with Lynda, especially if you're currently working and you're thinking about, what am I going to do in my next chapter? Well, now's the time to build those relationships. Now's the time to make acquaintances. And again, networking isn't, okay, can you tell me what I'm going to do? Or can you help me do it? No, it's building a relationship. It's meeting people. It's respecting each other. It's contributing to each other and then carrying them forward. So, and LinkedIn is a good tool for that today. But if definitely, if you're in the workplace, that is where you start. You start with building those relationships, because those are the people you will network with once you determine what your next chapter will be.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And something I remembered that Lynda had said, and you also touched on, is this idea of how much baggage you might be bringing forward and carrying forward with you. And I think that it's really, I mean, I don't know about anybody else, but for me, it is really easy to kind of just get used to the weight of it, right? To the point that it's not that it doesn't feel like you're carrying anything, but it'd be weird if the burden wasn't there. And so I very much appreciate this idea of kind of, reassessing what baggage and what traumas and what, beliefs and all the kind of stuff that you might be bringing with you. Because, you might end up like that storage locker you don't unlock for 12 years. And all of a sudden you look in and realize, oh, this is full of garbage. Oh, I don't need most of this. Oh, look, there's one thing I want to keep that. And then that's it. Like you do have the opportunity to kind of do this for yourself. And I'm loving all of this. So I'm going to try and keep going and talk less, so that there's more room for you both. All right. When it comes to new skills, do you think there are any new skills that midlife or older professionals should be focused on in order to help themselves remain competitive? Helen, how do you feel about this?
Digital. That's it. No, I think, I mean, obviously, as far as skills, you want to stay current on where your interests are going to be. Or if you're staying in the same field, let's say you're going to a gig position in the same field, you still want to be updated on what's going on currently in the industry, in the market, what's being utilized, and make yourself familiar with it. I mean, there's so many opportunities for online training now that there's no excuse not to. But I do think that one of the hurdles to overcome is the technology and the digital skills, and understanding the importance, understanding how to manage them and be comfortable representing yourself when you're doing the LinkedIn or doing your branding with social media. You need to understand it so you're comfortable with it, and that's something that you need to always. That's just so critical, because you'll often hear people planning for that next step. Well, I'm not that comfortable with it. Well, you need to be. You need to admit, at least the professional aspects. I don't think it's necessarily that you need to be comfortable on TikTok, or Snapchat, but you need to be comfortable with what's utilized in the workplace. That's messaging, whatever it is, you need to make yourself aware of it.
Yeah. And this feels like a very good time to kind of revisit what y'all had talked about when it comes to networking in within the industry you're in, or if you're going to pivot, start networking there. One of the things that we talk about in mentorship chats a lot is the fact that mentors don't have to be formalized, and they don't have to be older than you. So if you are, working in an office and you know that you're not great on Slack, tap one of the ignorant young whippersnappers you work with and tell them that you want help. It's okay. Like, if somebody were to ask me for help, like the 3 times my grandfather ever asked me to help with something, as opposed to like, here, I broke this, fix it, like miles and miles of difference. And I would happily go through and do that. So, people love to show off. They love to tell you the things that they know. This is an easy way to do that. Try and weaponize the ignorant young whippersnappers that might be around you. We're not competition. We can absolutely be
Yes.
Sources of information.
Absolutely.
Lynda, how about you? Oh, go ahead, Helen. Sorry.
Just to add, creating your own mentors. That's important. Yes.
Lynda, how about you? What skills do you think midlife and older professionals should be focused on?
So just to add to what Helen has said, yes, digital literacy per se. I put myself on a course when I realized that digital was going to be such an important part. And digital is different to computer skills. It's a new language, how to communicate, how to present, how to put across stuff, as Helen has said. So yes, she's mentioned a lot on digital. I'll just add, I think, good communication skills, but now in a digital format, as well as in whichever other format you may use. But critical to be able to put across what it is that you want on whichever platform that might be. Building diverse networks. I think, we've mentioned this before, but it will help you to open doors. It will help you to understand those younger and older than yourself. And that just broadens your own mind to be able to, Chip Conley says in the Modern Elder book, Wisdom at Work, is that we need to all be mentors and interns. And his term is called a mentern, because we we can learn from the younger generation, and that we can mentor the younger generation. So it's a reciprocal process. And then vitality, absolutely critical to keep your health up, because if we want to live longer, we want to live a healthier, longer lifespan. We don't want to be sick for longer. It needs to be a gift season. So working on your stress, doing exercise, getting enough sleep, putting the technology down and engaging with people. All of those are critically important.
Excellent. Thank you both. All right, we have 4 minutes left. This time always goes incredibly quickly. I do want to see if we can get to one question from the chat. I know there were tons of great ones sent in. If we're not able to get to your question, please, please, please sign up for one of Helen's upcoming chats. I know we do at least once a month with her, but you can follow Powerfly on our various social media, and that will help you to know when Helen's chat is. I'll also in the background try and grab a link if I can for pre-registration. All right, Rebecca had written in saying, when you're working full-time and balancing family and other obligations, how do you recommend making space for this kind of reflective work? I'm in my mid-40s, but I have a toddler and have really been struggling to make space for the reflective work that I know I need to do as a pivoter, even though my days are filled with work and family responsibilities. So Lynda, how do you recommend people carve out time for this kind of work? Does it have to be done in one big chunk? Should you do it in multiple, smaller sections? What do you recommend?
I think that, when you have so much on your plate, as many moms do, we need to take it in tiny bite-sized chunks, even if it is just one course at a time or half an hour reading a specific book. Asking, I think sometimes we don't ask enough to be able to have just half an hour of time for yourself to be able to invest in whatever it is that you want to do. And sometimes it's going for a walk, writing in a journal, and just slowly but surely building up. But it is a process, and if you're in a different season, just use tiny bites of time to be able to build, and then you will look back and see that you've actually moved quite far forward. But start with Ikigai, start with doing yourself a vision board and put it up somewhere, because that will help you to find a way to move forward and bring your family into it. Some of the people I've done my course with have done a family Ikigai, so that all of their needs are met as a family. And I think that's also fabulous. We sometimes keep too quiet about what our own needs are.
I like that. I like that a lot. Excellent. And then for all of you who are wondering, it looks like we don't have another chat scheduled with Helen just yet. It's probably in the works, but I threw a link in the chat to where you can check out all of the past sessions we've done with Helen. So a lot of the questions that are being asked in here about, red flags when it comes to passing the ATS, eliminating dates from your resume, a lot of these basic questions, these are all answered in her past chats. They're only 30 minutes each. They're super, super fun. Helen's amazing. It's really great. So definitely check those out if you're further interested. Lynda and Helen, we are going to come to an end here. However, I just want to make sure we save time to say thank you to both of you. Where can people reach out if they are interested in your services or following along to see what you're doing? Helen, how about you go first?
Oh, thank you, Meg, and thank everyone for attending. And thank you, Lynda. It's great to see you. You can reach me if you go to my website, which is tanagi.com. There's you can do a consultation schedule there. That's a free consultation, or you can email me at hdsanchez@tanagi.com if you have a question that I'm more than happy to answer.
Thank you, Helen. It's been wonderful to do this panel with you, and thanks, Meg, for being a great host for us. I've put my @Lynda Smith on LinkedIn. I think would be the easiest from a global perspective. Otherwise, Lynda, Lynda @refirementnetwork.com. Refire with an F, not a T, because we need to refire, not retire.
Ooh, I like that. I like that. Lynda.
I love that.
Yeah. All right. I just want to say a huge thank you to both of you. This has been wonderful. I hope we get to chat again soon. Helen, I can't wait to host another one of your chats.
Yes.
And just thank you for gracing our stage today. This was absolutely wonderful.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Meg.